Welcome to Keys to the Future, the podcast where we explore the stories, insights, and ideas that inspire the next generation of STEM professionals. I'm your host, Gabby Coe. Today, we're tackling time management for demanding STEM roles. Whether you're an engineer managing tight project deadlines, a researcher balancing lab work and publishing, or a student trying to stay on top of your coursework, mastering time isn't optional. It's essential. Let's get started. I'm excited to welcome three incredible guests, each shaping the future of STEM in their own way. Nina Arcot is a manufacturing systems engineer specializing in satellites and payloads. Her experience spans spacecraft production, mission assurance, and digital transformation, with a focus on improving manufacturing efficiency. A Princeton-trained mechanical and aerospace engineer, she is also a dedicated STEM advocate and leader with the Brooke Owens Fellowship and the Society of Women Engineers. Marguerite Smith is a patent agent specializing in intellectual property strategy with expertise in patentability analysis across data security, medical devices, and wireless technology. Holding dual degrees in electrical engineering and engineering management from Miami University, she combines technical depth and leadership in the Society of Women Engineers and competitive beach volleyball. Khadija Abousalama is an aerospace engineer and emerging space policy professional specializing in spacecraft propulsion and international space security. She serves as a propulsion technical lead supporting government and commercial missions. A George Washington University graduate, she holds a degree in mechanical and aerospace engineering and is completing a master's in space policy at the Space Policy Institute at George Washington University. Ladies, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for sharing your journeys with the Keys to the Future community.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Sounds like you are all very, very busy. So I think the time management topic is very apropos. And so time management can feel like such a heavy topic at times, right? But it's actually one of the most empowering skills that you can develop. So to kick things off on a lighter note, when life gets chaotic, what's one strategy or guilty pleasure that helps you stay sane? Who wants to start?
I can probably go ahead and start. So yeah, you're right. Time management is a life skill set that everyone at an early age should be aware of and develop. From my personal experience, when life gets chaotic, and it does get chaotic most of the time, given I'm also a mom of two kids, my strategy is to move my body. That's like primarily the first thing that I do. A workout is always a reset button for me. Even 10 minutes changes your entire mental state. So for the young generation to keep that in mind, because it's a reminder that when you move your body, you remind yourself that you're strong and capable before you walk into a day full of demands. I personally also, given my motherhood role, I ground myself in simple rituals. I cook particularly Mediterranean food, something that smells like home. There is something about chopping vegetables or like hearing olive oil sizzle that really slows everything down. Sometimes it's even smaller than that, can be a quiet coffee in your car. So for me, movement, food, and solitude, that's my sanity formula.
I think I would say the same thing as Khadija in terms of movement. I do play volleyball. I play beach volleyball competitively, and I have trainings and practices, but I don't see them as, like work or a job or stressful. I look forward to them as a break from my day job, as a break from life, because I can't check my phone while I'm playing volleyball. I'm on the court, I'm training, I'm competing, I'm in the sand, I'm dirty, I'm sweating, but it's like 2-3 hours of my day that no one else can bother me, and I just get to step away, go play my game, do my best, sweat, and refocus my life. And then when I'm done, I'm usually ready to resume life, handle family, handle work, handle making myself dinner, everything that comes after that. I'm ready to resume life. So I definitely agree with moving your body. I think it's so critical. And it could be any sport activity you want. I don't care if it's 10 push-ups, something just to reset your mentality.
Yeah, and I think for me, maybe a slightly different answer on the guilty pleasure side. I just really like building Legos. And try to do that probably at least once a month. I have kind of a stockpile of Lego sets that I haven't built yet. So always looking forward to
to building something new.
Oh, that is awesome. Those are great strategies. I mean, I can relate to the move your body. Every morning I get up and, go for a run, kind of reset my day before it even starts, right? So that way, in my mind, I am kind of like building up, okay, what is it that I have to do and organizing certain things in my mind so that when I get to the office or where I need to go, then I have a plan and I'm not, scrambling to get started. So those are great strategies. And time management really looks different for everybody. Some rely on structure, others on flexibility. How do you personally decide what deserves your time and attention on a busy day?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, everybody has his own different way of managing that. So, as an engineer, we think in terms of critical path all the time. So, but as a mom, I tend to think of emotional impact. So, I filter really my day or my life into three different buckets. First bucket is mission critical kind of thing. And the second one is like relationship critical. And then I have a third bucket where everything else can go. So I think if it's not in the first two, then it can wait. For me, I try to simplify things given how life can get chaotic. So I've learned that urgency is often loud, but the importance is to try to keep that quietness and you prioritize what is important. If you start or learn to operate in this mindset, things can start feel like more manageable.
I think that one kind of piece of your life cannot be over consuming, or else you'll lose yourself in it. So it's a little bit difficult to um, just say, "Oh, I'm just going to focus on work today. I'm just going to work as long as I can," because you lose your connection with people, you lose your connection with food, fun, happiness, other things that might come in your life if you don't find the proper balance. So I do think it's a daily struggle, and it's never perfect. And I definitely push the boundaries of what I can accomplish in a day. I'm sure we all do, being very high achieving engineers. But I think you just have to take it one day at a time and give yourself a lot of grace because we like to say you can do it all, but you really can't do everything you want to do in one day. You want to rest just as much as you want to be productive. You want to eat well just as much as you want to, go find a new place to eat in the city or, go explore a new neighborhood. It's hard to have adventure and productivity and rest and well-being all in the same day. So I think it's just the daily struggle and you do your best every day, and that's all you can do is give yourself that grace.
Yeah, it's definitely important reminder, give yourself grace. And another thing for me, how I prioritize is figuring out which of my tasks are things that other people are waiting on. If other people need information or they need something done in order to do their job or to, if they're counting on me for something, then I'll prioritize it over something that maybe doesn't have a specific deadline or that I can kind of squeeze in if it's only going to impact myself.
Love that. I love the way that Khadija mentioned the buckets to categorize what's really important and then work through, those priorities. And then Marguerite, you mentioned it's a daily struggle. It really is. But if you keep your sights on the prize, if you will, which should be your mental health, right? Because that it allows you to really concentrate on what is important and go tackle those problems or go tackle those tasks as you prioritize them so that you can really maintain your sanity through all of the things that you have to do. So everything can be a top priority, as we've been saying. So I'm curious if you've ever made a mistake that you made early on when managing your time, and what did you learn from it?
I recall when I started as a professional engineer back then, I was under the impression that you can get over you can get recognized by not by allowing yourself for being overwhelmed all the time. And what I mean by that is that I thought by being busy meant you're going to end up being valuable. And I said yes to everything. I used to answer emails instantly and staying late, all of that. Then what I learned over time is that allowing yourself to be in that overwhelming state is never going to be like a performance rewarding or metric. So that's, I think I've realized that was a mistake. So later on I started like reversing my strategy into kind of like mindfulness, more of as Nina and Marguerite mentioned, like being more like soft and like kind to yourself and try to find the sanity back in those details in your daily life. So I think we live in a society where they make you realize that if you put yourself in that busy, overwhelming state, you'll automatically end up succeeding. But I don't think that's always the case. So that was a mistake that's still staying with me and I'm still trying to overcome.
Yeah, I relate to that quite a bit. My first job was as a mission assurance engineer, and a lot of what I was doing was getting involved anytime something went wrong in manufacturing or test. So a lot of times it was, an active issue that was holding up hardware. We needed an answer as quickly as possible. And I kind of learned that as soon as an email came in or a message came in, to respond to it immediately. And I made the mistake of applying that to everything instead of, when something comes in, thinking about whether it needs an immediate response or if it's something that would be okay to wait a little bit. And especially now, as I've been in different roles where a lot of the time someone reaches out, they don't need an immediate answer. They don't expect an immediate answer. So I've tried to be more intentional about, if something comes in, instead of stopping everything that I'm doing, checking to see what it is, figuring out when I need to respond, and then seeing when in my day I want to do that instead of breaking the flow of what I'm doing at that time.
I remember early on, one of my first patent applications they ever gave me while they were training me. And in the legal field and in engineering, most things have a deadline, which is pretty simple. And I work well with a deadline because, you don't want to be late and there's an expectation. But the first few they gave me had no deadline. And that was really difficult for me to grapple with because, I was like having a hard time deciphering when it was due, when someone expected it from me, how long would it take me? And because there was no deadline, I started becoming stressed and anxious about, am I spending too much time? Am I spending too little time? Do they need it now? And it just almost just kept being put on the back burner. And turned it in way too late, way later than I should have, way later than they expected, because I just sat there with the analysis paralysis of, have I done enough? Do they need it now? Is it going to bother them if I turn it in now? Because I still am in training. They have more important things to do, my supervisor. And so I think I just really got burned early on by the fact that because there was no deadline, I didn't set one for myself and didn't understand the expectations. So I just didn't do the assignment in the amount of time that probably would have been reasonable. And after many applications later, I have my own schedule. If they say no deadline, I set myself a deadline because I need one. But that was a stressor for me to not have a deadline at all.
Right. I love that. Oh my goodness. This is so up my alley because I tend to be very structured on my, time management, right? That's what that allows me to say yes to things that I want to say yes to. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But I like the way they say mindfulness and be give yourself grace. You can't be in two places at the same time or two meetings at the same time, right? Because then again, it affects your capability on how you will perform. It really does affect your performance to be saying yes to everything. And then you said you all kind of mentioned, actually, Nina and Khadija mentioned responding to emails as quickly as possible because you think that people are expecting that quick response, right? And we live in a world that is, instant gratification. And people, you may think that people want, that response. But if you step back, it actually allows you to think through what they're asking, what people may be asking for and address it in a better way. Even though it may be a little bit later, you may just address it, period, right? By taking the time to analyze a little bit more and then come up with a response. Then you provide that response, and then people are satisfied with that response, and they don't have to come back to your door and say, hey, what did you mean by this? Or like really quickly trying to answer in that email or whatever. I love all that input. And then Marguerite, you mentioned giving yourself deadlines. And I think even if you don't have a deadline from your organization or whoever you're working with, I think setting yourself up for success, right, is kind of giving yourself those deadlines so that you can at least do or accomplish the work step at a time and not have to feel overwhelmed at the end where you have to like, oh my gosh, I only have a day or less or a few hours to just do this. And so kind of setting yourself up for success in that way. So very, very good input from all of you. So technology nowadays, right, can help us really make it easy to or you would think to do time management. I'm curious, what systems or tools do you use to stay organized? Do you have a digital planners or apps, or do you just rely on the good old school notebooks?
Right. I like that you mentioned the old school and the notebooks because that's me. I'm also a millennial, so I work in the tech field, but I'm not a tech savvy when it comes to my personal life. Honestly, I rely a lot on my own memory so far, and I'm trying to eat healthy to try to preserve some of that. And really, and I think Nina, maybe Marguerite would agree with me. Like some of these technical fields, like engineering, trains you really to hold kind of like complex systems and problems in your mind. So you have that training already in place. Like you're constantly can be thinking of timelines, as Marguerite mentions, like deadlines. Those dependencies kind of like naturally sharpens that skill, at least for me, even more. So over time, I've built kind of like that internal kind of like tracking system. Most of my friends would mock me not having like or using my phone, kind of like having zillions of apps, those like sophisticated apps. I don't have that, and especially the only thing that I would mention is that given that now I'm currently studying for my master, when things get busy, especially in the academia world, I go completely old school, like classical notebook, pen and paper, because that gives me that satisfaction. So writing things down helps me think more clearly than typing ever does. So I'm not a big fancy productive apps. It may work. I've seen them like work miraculously and most of the people in my surrounding, but I'm just old school or at least resisting the change.
So I used to have just like a regular planner on paper. It was like a weekly planner to be kind of your top goals for the week and then a few things you're planning to do each day. And I really liked that. I used it for kind of a few years. But my current role, I'm hybrid. So I'm at home sometimes, I'm at the office sometimes, I'm at the office. I'm in different up to 3 different buildings over the course of the week. And so I didn't want to have to bring that physical planner with me everywhere and have another thing to remember. So I switched to using a digital one just because of that, you know, logistical challenge. I was initially using I like recreated that planner kind of in Excel. So I was just doing it in a spreadsheet for a bit. And then I recently discovered that there's the Microsoft Planner app. I don't know if it's new or if I just didn't know it existed until a month ago, but it basically lets you create like a to-do list. So I can do the same thing, which is putting in what I plan to do each day. And then I can mark things as in progress or complete. And then I can also have kind of a running list of other things that I need to do, even if they don't have a specific date yet. So yeah, that's been kind of working well for me, just kind of laying out what I plan to do each week, every Monday, and then each day at the start of the day.
I think opposite to Khadija, I really lean into the self-help calendar apps. I have multiple and I need them all and they all have a different purpose. And I've leaned into that since college. In college, I use this program, which I highly recommend for students, called My Study Life. And it really just kept me on track because I could put in my college daily schedule. I could separate tasks by class and deadline and due date and if there were, percentage completion of it. And I just like loved the project management aspect of that. But it didn't really work in a professional sense. I really tried to give it a go and it just, it doesn't quite work. So I was doing some hunting and I did see Microsoft tasks, but then my organization like disabled that for me. So I was like, no, I can't use that anymore. So I use Google Calendar personally for my personal life calendar events. I use my Outlook calendar for work for my work calendar and events. But to maintain all of my tasks and to-do lists, I use this program that's free online. It's called TickTick, and it just has all my tasks separated by client, which works really well for my industry because I have a million tasks for all these different clients, and they're all urgent and due right now. So it kind of helps me prioritize what's due on what day, how urgent is it, and I can like give my own discretion of like, I think this is a red flag, or I think this is a yellow flag. And other ones I'm like, that's not really due today, but we'll put it on there anyways. And then my general daily to-do list outside of work, like maybe I have a SWE thing to do or I have a meeting to attend, so I should have to take some notes and I have to prepare something for that so I could see. I'm a very visual person. I just need to see everything in front of my face all at once. And that really helps me, all those different apps and stuff. But everyone thinks it's crazy because they're like, you have 4 calendars and 3 different things you're looking at. But I'm like, I need them all. I need them all and they're all different.
Absolutely. I mean, whatever works, right? Whatever works for
Right.
you. I mean, I kind of do a little bit of both, old school and, use some apps, particularly the Google one. I just keep track of, like, for example, my podcast work. I keep track of that when I'm meeting with, for example, when we're meeting to do the recording. That's very important, right? I can't not show up when everybody is here. But my work, I keep that on Outlook and I block out time, which is we're going to get into that. But yes, I do both, which I find very rewarding to like when you're writing something, you write a task and then you cross it out. If I find that very rewarding, as well as, just check marking it on an app or something like that. But what about time management methods? Do you follow any particular ones? I mean, the Pomodoro technique is very popular, I think, among students. But, blocking focus time or prioritizing by energy level, do you use any specific methods?
Type of people. But for me, being a mother while still undergrad, kind of like I've developed my own technique, which is, yeah, the same as kind of like blocking those focus hours depending on what you have to deal with and having a kid back then. So if something would require some strategic or thinking or analysis, I would typically keep it for like late at night. And I'm not here talking about work. I'm talking about particularly when you are students. So it's like I tend to focus when there is that quietness level, and I would typically wait until, or I try to kind of like have a nap during the day or something until I have that quiet moment, and then I would go and tackle my homework and all of those projects at night. And again, the reason I'm highlighting or I'm emphasizing on mentioning that because not everybody can be a traditional student, you know, so
Yeah.
everybody can have their own method and all of that. So that's, and also like currently now, while being professional and still being a mom and a student, I tend more to prioritize now things by energy level. Work, of course, is work, but when it's my free time, there is motherhood, and also I have grad school. So energy level when I need something that requires to do something or complete something that requires focus, I would try to block it and try to give my kids, for example, Legos or Play-Doh. They'll play with it, and I'll try to anchor executing that project to that particular like my high energy and all of that. So I guess for me, it's never been kind of like linear, but more of given the circumstances that I'm dealing with. Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
I think I totally switched my strategy in terms of how I block my day when I was in college versus now professionally. I was like a night owl in college. I was just up until the late hours working on homework, hopefully with other friends and people who were also suffering through the homework, but we would be up late. And that was just part of life. With classes, we could sleep in a little bit more, at least maybe we had like a 10 a.m. lecture or something to get to. So I really relied on the late evenings, like Khadija, to get some serious work done. And now as a professional, I see a lot of like my people in my office stroll in a little late in the morning and they stay later. So my response to that has been to wake up really early and start the work day before everyone else because it's quiet and no one else is around. I could do my collaboration with them later in the afternoon, evening when they're prepared to talk and everyone's present. But if I need to get my own work done, really be thinking and really be on. I work really well in the morning if I'm just up and maybe I've done a workout. I went to a yoga class or something at 5 a.m. So I'm, at the office by 6:37. I've got a solid like 2, 3 hours before everyone's in the office and I can just work on my own, knock some stuff out, prepare whatever I need to do. It also lets me leave work a little bit earlier in the afternoon so I can attend to other parts of my life or just rest a little bit more.
I used the Pomodoro method a lot in grad school. One of the things that I liked about it is I kind of struggled with when to work on things for different classes, and I was worried that I like wasn't prioritizing things correctly. With the Pomodoro method, you're working on something for 25 minutes and then you take a break. So I would just kind of cycle through my different classes. So like, one class for 25 minutes, then the next class for 25 minutes until I went through all the different things I needed to do and I could see what progress I was making in order to tailor the rest of it accordingly. I would say now I do try to block off some time when I like just put myself on do not disturb and I just ignore messages for the most part, except for like from a few specific people where it might be urgent. I also just ignore emails during that time. Like most things can wait an hour, it'll be okay. And yeah, in terms of the energy levels, that's something that I definitely struggle with a little bit with work because when I was in school, a lot of times I would be in class, during the day, and then most of the time when I was doing homework and, sort of actively doing work was after 4 in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon when I was done with class. And so even now, I find I'm most productive after 4 p.m., which doesn't really work when you're working kind of a standard schedule. So I'm definitely kind of trying to shift shift that a little bit somehow. But if there are days when like I just get super productive later in the day, I just say, okay, that's what it is. And I might work a little bit later that day if I have some good momentum. And then like start a little bit later the next day to balance it out.
Yeah, that's great. And I think balance, right? I think the balance is the key word there. But we've been talking about, prioritizing what we do, our tasks or whatever. But in our jobs, we have to coordinate with a lot of teams, that the teams that we work with. How do you balance focused work and having to attend meetings?
Honestly, yeah, that area can be a struggle all the time. I personally consider myself still working on that particular area, especially when you get new workloads or new tasks or new responsibility. As you gain experience, you tend to have more responsibility. And as a technical lead, I've learned that being available doesn't mean being constantly interruptible. So protecting real or kind of like deep work time, it makes collaboration better because you kind of like show up sharper. I personally value collaboration. It is important to allocate that time to collaborate with different teams and different meetings and all of that. But also at the same time, I'm constantly reminding myself, and I started like more like I've decided not to attend meetings lately if but I'm not adding value, because I've learned over time that that time is a waste. If you're going to attend a meeting where you haven't prepared, or you will be just kind of like dialing in and listening to other people, like adding value, that time it could be allocated towards some other deep work or executing something. And people actually in the professional world, they do respect that, because being valuable in the workplace, it means you're adding value. So I guess that's the core idea that we should stick to. Value is always the currency for that balance.
I think it's
I agree.
hard. I know my Wednesdays are usually forfeit in terms of productivity because it's the day everybody's in the office in our hybrid roles. So even if I don't have like meetings scheduled all the time on that day, I just know we have an open door policy. So people walk in and ask questions. They'll come talk about whatever's going on a project. So I'll have visitors all day, is how I treat my Wednesdays. So I don't really get that deep time unless I either find a quiet space away from my desk to like hide and get stuff done. But usually I try and plan my week in preparation, knowing Wednesday, I'm going to be talking to people all day. I'm not going to get to really sit and dig into something. Do it Monday, do it Friday when everyone's working from home and probably not going to bother me unless there's a meeting. Or even Tuesday and Thursday, maybe I like do it really early in the morning ahead of meetings or something, just so that I have that time done. And I just, you have to block that time for yourself somehow. And I just know I can't do it on Wednesdays. It's not going to happen. Everyone's around. So I
Yeah.
try and shift my week accordingly.
Yeah,
I
I've
mean,
definitely in some of my roles had similar days where it's just kind of back to back meetings, and I'm like, okay, I need to just set aside time on a different
yeah.
day to make good progress on something. I know for me right now, a lot of my projects we have kind of a weekly or twice weekly check in where we kind of meet as a team and talk through things and make certain decisions, and then the rest of the time is focused on kind of independent work that we need in order to be like making progress and having those check-ins be productive. So I kind of treat the those meetings and collaboration as a way to help guide what I'm doing the rest of the time. That's how I kind of view it. And then, if there's something where meeting once a week is too often or not enough, depending on what other people have going on, or if it's 30 minutes versus an hour, just kind of seeing how that goes and adjusting over time just to figure out the right balance of collaboration and working independently on our different projects.
Yeah, I like that too. Because one of the things that I've used is if a meeting notice has an agenda, a clear agenda of what needs, what is being covered, what is expected from people. then I kind of prioritize that over meetings that are, not having a clear agenda, or you're not sure how you're going to contribute in that space. Especially when I am very, very busy and trying to get, work to deadlines, and trying to get products, whatever product I'm working on, doing that day. So those are really nice techniques that but what has been a small habit that's made the biggest difference in your productivity?
I think, yeah. So before I go to bed every night, I try to think of or identify what's tomorrow's top three priorities, not 10, not 20, just three. Because before I used to put a list of, 15 or 20 priorities, and I ended up being just, depressed by the end of the day for not going or executing through all of the lists. So for now, I try to be kind to myself because that at least that satisfaction of checking off those three gives you a little bit of momentum to go through the next and you end up executing more. So identifying things one night before, it kind of like removes decision fatigue in the morning when you wake up, and it structures your day better. It's a small thing. It's not something that you're going to write down on a notebook or put a reminder on, but it's something that stays in the back of your mind and it could be helpful. This is something that I personally tried and it helps.
I think I do the same thing. If I have a meeting the following day, I try and at least prep or understand what I'm going to be discussing in the meeting the day before. Even if it's later in the afternoon the next day, I just feel that if I tackle it the same day, I either feel under pressure or something random comes up and gets in my way, doesn't give me as much time as I want. Or alternatively, I start and I realize this is something bigger I need to dig into and I don't have time. So then you're really strapped. So I try and do something the day before to feel prepared, or at least in a place where I can prepare for the next day, especially when it comes to collaborating with other teammates.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think for me, kind of similar, but at a different scope. So I've gotten a lot out of doing my sort of weekly plans on Monday, just because a lot of times I might have a sense of what I want to do over the course of the week. But I find that if I don't set aside like which days I want to do the different tasks, or kind of building in those internal deadlines of when I need to have different things done, I was reaching a point where I'd get to the end of the week and feel like I hadn't done anything because I hadn't actually planned out when I was going to do each of the tasks.
Right, right. So speaking of priorities and feeling prepared, right? I mean, I think time management helps us do that prioritization and prioritize our yeses so that we can say no to some things. How have you handle saying no to something that you've been asked to do because you want to prioritize what really is important and your yeses?
Honestly speaking, I don't think that I was ever good at saying no, especially in engineering. And as a woman working in a demanding field, there's always that pressure that you're trying to prove yourself by always saying yes. So it does take practice. And as you mature and gain more experience, you gain that confidence to just be able to say yes. I am not gonna say that it was an instantaneous or a by default skill. No, I had to practice that and I had to accumulate some of the experience that gave me that confidence. So now you can just say, I'd love to contribute, but I just don't have the bandwidth to do that right now. And I know when I say that, it may have a different perception because you've already proved your values and so forth. So it may be challenging for early career professionals or even students, but I think time and practice can make this doable.
I think especially for my first year, I didn't really feel that I had that luxury to say no to things. I feel like I was trying to prove myself to different supervisors and people to show that they could give me more work or delegate things to me and I would be reliable so that when it came time and I had built up that reputation, I could kind of pick and choose what was interesting to me. And I think I've gotten to that point, but I'm still very bad at saying no because I'm like, of course I could take it. Of course I can help you because I feel a responsibility to my colleagues and I really like my colleagues in a way where I'm like, yes, of course I want to do this for you to like help you out because it's generally taking work off of someone higher up's plate. So I do appreciate that. But I have kind of tried to shift my work to work that's interesting to me or work I've never tried so that I'm really gaining something from learning it and it's brand new to me. Because, I never got better at by doing something that was very comfortable. So, and in terms of what that work looks like, it's typically by subject matter for me. I get to work on a very diverse range of subject matter, but we have some video game work. So I love working on stuff related to video games. I'm like, yeah, give it to me. I'll make the space, no problem, whatever it is. And if I see something that like I'm very squeamish as a person, so we get some medical device stuff, I'm like, oh, I can do it, but like, it's very uncomfortable for me to see like blood or gross things
Yeah.
to me. I'm just so squeamish. So I get to kind of tailor my day in that way, and everyone's very understanding of that because everyone's busy, right? And everyone knows
Right.
everyone's busy.
That's excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, and I can share an example from outside of work. So there's a group I'm involved in through the Society of Women Engineers, where I handle all of the kind of back end work for our events. So making all of our registration forms and getting everything ready for the rest of the communications team to advertise it out. And in order to have time to do all of that for all the events that we're doing, we have kind of a deadline of how far in advance we need someone to submit an event in order for us to go through the rest of the process. And we had something come up recently where um, a team submitted something that was just too far past the deadline for us to be able to make it work and squeeze it in. And if we had done it, we wouldn't have been able to, do the work we needed to do for other events that had been submitted in time. And so we kind of talked it over as a communications team, and I got agreement, from them as well as the overall leads for our group. And we just kind of went back to the people who submitted the event and just explained the situation and really made sure to, explain why we weren't able to accommodate it at that point and explaining what we can do kind of in the future to be more flexible or, just making sure that they know that we want to work with them and that we want to, get the best outcome for everyone. It's not just us trying to like be selfish with our time. So yeah, I think just kind of having that open communication and transparency to navigate that situation.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, the openness and transparency, right? It's like you can say, "I'd love to help you, but right now I'm doing this, but I can help you in, X days or when,
Right.
when I free up or whatever." So that way you're not really saying no directly because sometimes you don't really want to say no directly, but um at least you're saying I can help you and but I right now I'm prioritizing something else, then I can help you with whatever. And then just like Marguerite said, right? Like try and work on some things that you haven't worked on before, where you're saying no right now, but you're not quite saying no longer term. So yeah, I love that. So just to wrap up our conversation here, I like one to go like rapid round of questions, if you will. What is one time management tip you wish you'd learned earlier? What comes first to your mind?
I guess I'm sharing this just given the stage or the age, my age and the stage of life where I am. I wish I'd learned earlier that prioritizing your health is not directly tied to time management, but it's really have that direct impact. Most of the young generation, young folks, like I was one of them, like undergrad and when you go to school, you continue, like you can be excellent as putting those Excel sheets in yourself, but probably not having that nutritious lunch or dinner. For me now at this stage of my life, I've learned that taking care of your body, I mentioned workouts, I guess that was our opening point. And then make sure that you're aware of what you're putting in your body, like not consume those ultra processed foods because it will come to bite you later in your life. So it's not directly tied to time management, but for the young generation, please keep that in mind. Make sure that you start being mindful of your food, your health at an early stage, because that what will keep that continuous momentum of being productive. And you don't need to really make your time management methods fancy if you are healthy.
I think my favorite tip that I learned was to block off things on your calendar, even if it's just like fake time for you to work. I didn't know about that. And I was like, wow, these attorneys are so busy. But sometimes they just block off like focus time because you just have to dig into something. So I've started doing that. And I put like busy on my calendar from 2 to 4 or something. And that's just me like really not being bothered by anyone else and just being able to focus. But it is like a little slick tip I learned because I was like, I didn't know people do that. So now I do that myself a little bit.
Yeah, I think I just wish I had known sooner that time management is a skill that you can learn and get better at. I struggled with time management in high school and thought that it was just something that I was bad at, and that was kind of it. So I think just learning, I think maybe this just relates to kind of growth mindset versus fixed mindset, really knowing that it's something that I can work on and get better at over time, instead of just thinking I have to be bad at it forever.
What about one way you reset when your day has completely falling apart? We've all had those days. What comes to mind?
I would say for me, just going for a walk, even if it's like a 30-minute walk around the office. Sometimes if I'm at the office, I'll use the restroom that's like farther away, just so it's kind of a longer walk, things like that. Or as the weather gets a bit nicer, going outside for a little bit.
Well, I guess this is might sound like controversial, but I would ask myself simply, will this matter in 5 years? Just to
Mm,
relieve that tension and feel better instances at that particular moment, because I would know that maybe hours later I would be able to go through that and reset myself. But because sometimes emotionally you can be feeling when things falls apart, just to handle that mental state is can be the priority of that instance. And then later on things can you can figure out things later.
I also relate to Nina. I would say walk away, but I usually walk a lot further and I just go play volleyball and I'll text my partners who I train with and I'm like, hey, who's available at like, it's Friday, we're work from home and I can really just structure my schedule as long as I
Yeah.
get my work done by the deadlines, it's good. So I'm like, what's everyone doing at 4:30 on Friday? Can we just go play? And they're like, yeah, let's go train. So we'll spend 2 hours playing volleyball. And if there's something really urgent that needs to be done, because most of the government deadlines I work with are like midnight Friday or like Monday by 8 a.m., I'll just resume and go back to it. But sometimes I just like need the brain break.
I love it. Love it. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights and strategies. I love how real and practical this conversation has been.
Yes, thank you so much.
thank you.
STEM roles demand a lot, but we've heard today managing your time is less about perfection and more about awareness, boundaries, and balance. To our listeners, experiment, adjust, and remember that time management is essential to accomplish your goals. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and continue unlocking your keys to your future. Thanks to my guests, Nina Arcot, Khadija Abousalama, and Marguerite Smith. Thanks to Arcot for quality reviews. And thanks to Jill always.